Hey y'all, today we're going to be going over the Tunisian knit stitch. As you can see, it's named this way because it's a great way to kind of mimic that classical knit stitch using a crochet hook. We will be using a Afghan or Tunisian crochet hook. The difference between this and a regular one is it's a little hard to see, but it's got this tail that comes out all the way. This is great for when you're working on blankets. You can go ahead and just have an extended greater length in each of your rows and not be stuck with just the length of the hook. There's also the Tunisian crochet hook. You'll see them if you go on Amazon. They're just longer hooks, so for projects that you don't quite need that additional length or this somewhat aggravating tail, you can use one of those just the same. The trick is each one of the rows stays on your hook for the whole time, so that's why it's really crucial, depending on the length of your project, that you're using the right type of hook. But we'll go ahead and continue on. Alright, we can go ahead and get started. We're going to make a slip knot. And then, just like a normal stitch, we will chain our foundation. Alright, and a double check, right, that should be 15. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Alrighty. So with Tunisian, we're not going to need to turn. What we're going to do is leave our 15 chains, flip this over, and we're going to come through the back here. So where this is our 15th, we'll go one down and start in the next loop, yarn over, and pull through. Additionally, we're not going to yarn over and pull through again. We're going to leave this loop on the hook. And just continue on. Alright, this sound is going to make me crazy. Okay, and again, we're going through the bottom loop of that foundation chain. And we're really doing this mostly because instead of having the single loop, what it's creating is a nice braided look here on the bottom, which will match the top when we finish up. Then we'll go through that last one. And to maintain our count with Tunisian, when we finished this front pass, we can go ahead and just count these loops to make sure we're still at 15. 13, 14, 15. All right. We're going to go ahead and do the back pass. For the first one, we will yarn over and pull through this first loop only, and then for the rest we'll yarn over and pull through 2 at a time. Okay, we've come to the end. So with this Tunisian knit stitch, this next pass is going to be important that we keep the loops on our crochet hook quite loose. This pattern stitch has a real bad problem of curling, as you'll see. So to try and combat that, we're going to just keep these extra loose. To do the knit stitch, instead of doing a normal Tunisian stitch where we would go through this first one, we're actually going to push through and then push through the back, yarn over and pull up. Again, we're going to keep that loose. And here we'll go through the next one. We push through the back, yarn over, pull up, and we'll just continue down, making sure to keep these as loose as possible. And I'm just pulling just to kind of keep that tension looser. Alright, and then with the last one, you'll just go ahead and do a normal Tunisian stitch where we come through, yarn over, and pull up. So as we can see, it's already starting to curl pretty good. Maybe if I hold this ball. And again, we'll yarn over, go through just the first one, and then doubles from here on out. And notice we're not chaining one or using any turning stitches. These rows are based off of the forward and back passes. So once we've come to the end, it's just going to be a repetition of the same stitch. We'll skip this first loop since we have our loop on the hook. We'll come here, push through, and pull up. And now with this second one especially, we'll start to see this pattern form. And again, we're really trying to keep that tension of our loops on the hook quite loose. There we are. And that completes our second back pass. And slowly you can see those little V's forming. So we'll go ahead and add a few more stitches real quick to get an idea and come back to see the full pattern. Alright, so we went ahead and added a few more rows. As you can see, it's definitely curling up a little bit. Usually with these, to kind of prevent this curl, there are a couple options. You can either iron down and baste the stitches themselves, or I usually like to add a border. It just kind of adds a decorative element, and then you kind of lose these looser loops at the end. But as you move on, you can also see the curl will stop. I have a project here where you can see it curls pretty good at this end, and then as it gets longer and longer, it stops. For this project, since I'll be knitting those 2 other pieces, I don't really worry about the curl too much. If you are worried about it, again, you can either use the iron option or adding a border. But we'll go ahead and finish this up. So we're just gonna go on our back pass. So through 1 and 2 the rest of the way. One other thing to note with this, especially when you're trying to keep that tension loose, I like to kind of keep this, how I have my hand wrapped up, a little bit looser. So when I am going through each of these stitches, I'm not kind of pulling back to tighten that tension. It will help just a little bit. All right. So we've come to the end of our back pass. To finish this off, we're going to start the same way by going through that first, through the back, come up, and then instead of leaving it on, we will go ahead and slip stitch it through. And we will do this all the way across. And as mentioned before, as we're getting over, you can kind of see that it's making that nice braided effect and completing our knit stitch. And I don't know about y'all, I'm not a big knitter, so this is one of my favorite stitches for getting that classic knit look without having to use those knit needles, because they generally hurt my knuckles. Alrighty, and then we'll go through that very last one, just right through the front there. Look at it, curl right on up. And we have our matching borders, so you can see on the top and the bottom we have that knitted look. We can go ahead and snip this. And like with the rest, we'll just pull it through, tie it off, and hide those tails. So I'm using, I believe they're technically called an embroidery needle, or I want to say I usually just Google them on the Amazon and it comes up as crochet needles. But I'm just gonna hide my stitches by going through like such. Oh, excuse me, hide my tails. We'll do the same on the bottom. Alright, and here we go. It's going to be kind of hard to get this laid out, but there is our lovely Tunisian knit stitch.